Welcome to the BTTB podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jonathan, here with a special guest from across the country, from Yelm, Washington. We got Thomas. He is a coach, father, athlete. He is an amazing guy putting on a program together at a new sport and is growing it entirely exponentially. He is a coach of Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting. He's been a football coach for many years, just an all around guy that is breeding athletes in his communities. And I'm excited to have him on the podcast. We're going to get into a lot of things about the difference between school powerlifting and federation powerlifting. We're going to talk about growing a club and getting kids interested in a sport they might not have known about. We're going to talk about probably some fundraising tools and ideas, a little bit about social media, because I know he does a great job with Yelm Powerlifting on social media. I'm just super excited to have him on the podcast. We're going to get into a lot of high school powerlifting. And as y'all know, that is my favorite subject. I'm a huge advocate of teen lifting. And so we're going to get into it today. Thomas, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited.
All right. I'm excited too. Like I said, it's kind of cool. We're I don't know, 1,000 miles away, but we get to do this through video call. So I love how technology is aiding in doing this. So thank you. So let's get started. Yelm, Washington. Is that coastal or is that like mainland Washington? Like,
Yeah, we're like mainline Washington, basically down the I-5 corridor. We're probably like 30 minutes, probably from 40 minutes from Puget Sound water.
okay.
So yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and get it started. I know that you've been a teacher and a coach for many, many years. I know you have an athletic background, but just give us a quick rundown kind of about when you got into lifting, what kind of sports you played, and then what really drove you into coaching, because I feel like when you coach teenagers, it almost has to be more of a calling than it does like a career choice, because teenagers can be difficult. So kind of talk to us about what drove you into that wheel or that world of um building up teenagers to be great adults.
But yeah, I played sports from the earliest memory I have of my childhood, and I played everything. Soccer, basketball, baseball. High school, really when I started lifting, with the football team and a friend of mine down the street, we'd lift. But we did the bigger, faster, stronger routine. I remember it still in my head. Well, every single week. But yeah, I played football in high school, and then I swam in high school. I did track, baseball. I kind of did every sport I could think of. And I remember like, my sophomore year of high school, I was in my head football coach's social studies class, Ross Filkins. He's still there. Shout out to Ross Filkins. I remember thinking like, oh, I want to do what he does. I want to coach. And that's kind of the seed planted in my head what I want to do. So I don't know what to do, how to get there. I just remember I wanted to coach. I went to Pacific Lutheran University. It's local. It's in Tacoma, which is probably like 30 minutes north of us right now, where I am. And I played football there. And I played football originally I wanted to play football to be a better coach, not to like keep playing. I love football. And I love playing. I walked on there and played with Scott Westering and had a great time in that program. And then I also swam on the swim team in college. So being a two-sport athlete in college is a lot. And also and working jobs and trying to manage school and work was tough. But I remember thinking to myself when I was like 16 years old, I want to coach. How can I get there? And I just kind of like started that process. And I remember going to weight room in the summertime and with all my coaches, and those were some of my more like fond memories of lifting in the summer with my friends and then lifting after school during the year. So yeah, I mean, I've always been lifting since I was freshman, middle school age until now.
So I want to ask you a question because you put a lot of emphasis that your original goal was coach. So I want you to tell me what you think a coach is at like the high school level. What is what is what are they supposed to do? What is the main goal of a coach? Because I think that has evolved over the decades, and I want to know what you said. You had a specific coach that really motivated you. I'd like for you to go into a little more detail about what about him drove you to that desire of being a coach. I think they'll go hand in hand, but
Yeah, well, personally, so I grew up my grandparents raised me because my I had a rough childhood, I guess. My mother passed when I was really young, my dad was, a drug addict, I'd say, basically, and then
I understand.
so
Same.
I had, a lot of father figures through, my grandpa and then also through coaching, so for me, it was more of a, like, I latched on to that figure, and I wanted to do that to kids. I wanna be like, "Oh, I wanna be that father figure or that mentor type figure for kids." Um, that sounds like a really fun thing to do and to kinda give back to my community. So that's what, like, I really wanted to do is be that mentor type person. 'Cause, I remember, you know, sitting in our meeting rooms and we're talking about, you know, not football things related, talking
Mhm.
about character development and talking about how to act in class and how to do things after school. And so like that stuff I remember, the X's and O's. I don't remember those things, but I remember that. And then so that's what I wanted to do. I'm making a more of a mentorship type role and being mentor to kids. So football was one of the avenues that I just kind of only knew how to do. Like coaching was one way you can do it, and teaching is great. As a PE teacher, I see 400 kids a year or something. Coaching is kind of nice where I see that same kind of group consistently
Mhm.
um, for a longer period of time throughout their 4 year career in high school. High school is unique because like we get to see the end goal. When I taught middle school, kids would leave and then they go to high school and like, oh, well, hope you guys graduate. We don't get to
Yeah.
see the ending finish. High school is fun. We get to see the ending finish. You can see kind of a glimpse of what they're going to be like when they grow up to be adults.
So you brought up what would you think or why do you think coaches in sports are able to mentor or impact kids a little more than their teachers? And I'm not saying teachers don't leave impacts, but I feel that sometimes coaches, especially the ones that play sports, are able to connect to them a little bit different than say the teachers. Why do you think that is?
One is time. You spend more time with them for 4 years. 2 hours a day after school, or you meet them in the morning for workouts or whatever. You have a lot more time with them. Um, it's you hear a message from someone who's not your parent
Mhm.
that usually as a teenager, it's you listen to. Uh, it's just different. So when like my grandpa could say like, oh, make sure you always tell the truth or make sure you always do this. And I'm like, oh, okay, as a teenager, I'm like listening to him, but then an outside observer tells me that, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do that. So it's interesting as teenagers how much uh they listen to their parents. They probably have a great household, but it's always different when someone else on the outside tells you um how to act, how to behave, or you know
Yeah.
what are ways to improve your physical body or improve yourself.
I've always kind of correlated it to, and you can agree or disagree, but mentors, teachers, coaches, they choose to invest in you, which I think at a young age, at a teenage age, you can already start seeing that. Whereas in parents, I think teenagers just automatically assume you're doing this because you have to. This is your responsibility. So it doesn't mean as much. But when you have someone that is giving their time, giving their energy, giving their, you know, everything they can for your investment, and it's a choice and not more of a requirement. It goes a lot further into teenagers' minds and their hearts, and it can reach them a little deeper. That's how I've always explained it to myself, and that's how I've always tried to allow the kids to understand. I'm not doing this because I have to. I do this because I see potential in you. I see that it can return an investment and you can become better. And they see that because I'm not obligated to be there, or I'm not and you'll testify this because you're in a club and not a sport, but I don't get paid to do what I do. I do it because I want the next generation to be better than what the trajectory I see out of them now. So it means a lot more to them. And that's kind of how I've always saw the difference in coaches or mentors versus parents, and why the teenager connects to them a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I found out late in life that I had ADHD. I mean, this is like a couple years ago. So, and I think about back in high school, how much it should have dawned on me because I thought, oh, if I lift this weight, I run this, I improve myself, I get better at the football game or whatever activity, and I get success. And I felt good. So for
Mhm,
me, it was always that trying to achieve that successful part. And, I would listen to my coaches how to get there because it was like a game to me.
mhm,
And then it kind of, branches from like the just working on the sport to outside of the sport and behavior and also like character development, especially in college when we at PLU. I don't know if you've ever heard of Frosty Westering. He was a longtime coach at PLU. He's in the Hall of Fame for coaching, and his son was our coach. And so that program was big into character development.
mhm,
We'd have meetings every Tuesday for, and we didn't talk football. We just talked character development,
mhm.
and so I did that for 4 years. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
So those things are that kids get from sports that it's not tangible. There's no wins losses, but they learn, routines, scheduling, being on time, trusting your other teammates. This is stuff through sports that you don't learn. There's no like concrete curriculum for that. There's just no
mhm.
way to measure it. But it's something that I think is really important for kids.
I agree with you. Like I said, I've been a firm believer that sports are not about the win and losses. It's not even in our program. It's not about how much you can lift. It's about teaching tools and teaching ethics and teaching disciplines that will make you become a better adult. I don't worry about how you are going to be as a kid. You're a kid for 18 years. You're an adult for 70. Let's determine the impact and let's get you better early on in your adulthood so that you can have the biggest impact not only on your family and your friends but your community and the nation as a whole. And so I agree with you. I think sports aren't ever about the win and losses. It's more about the character development. And I'm unfortunately in today's society where more kids are not playing sports at an early age and giving up on sports at an early age. I'm scared, and I think you can see it in today's, younger generation, that they're not getting the same development and same disciplines as they would if they kept with the sports. And we'll get into that a little bit and a little bit later, but let's go into sorry, you just really emphasized coaching, and I like to talk about what coaching really is or what it should be. Let's talk about Yelm a little bit and kind of how you've grown that. It's 3 years old currently. I think your program is right.
Technically, we're just past year two.
Okay, so you're
So
about to
this
start year 3 in the next school year. Talk to us a little bit about where it came where it started. I think you mentioned to me you took one person to state your first year, and now you took, like, 20 something this year, which
yeah,
as a growth is unheard of. Talk to us a little bit
yeah.
about where that like, how that started and how it's grown organically in the school.
Okay. So at Yelm, when I first got there, this is like post COVID, right after COVID, and I have a team. I have Kayla Gable is our assistant coach for girls. She also teaches. um, a weight training class that's in our ox gym. It's mostly girls. It's at the time, I would say kind of CrossFit-y, like in influence.
Mhm.
And then Jason Runkbo teaches. Jason Runkbo is our head football coach, and he was teaching weight training to our weight room. And I teach one section of weight training, and that's it. So we kind of collaborated. And when I got there, I did this competition called High School Throwdown through USAW Olympic lifting, and we did it at my previous school. And I was like, hey, we should do it here. I think it'll do really well. So we did it. And we had to take videos of each lift, videos of all of kids' weigh-ins, and send it into um, USAW Olympic lifting, and then they post the scores. And we won like the national title. I have the banner in our weight room, and I was like, "Oh wow, we won the best school in the nation lifting. That's cool." And then my friend who lives in Olympia High School, he teaches and he's the powerlifting coach there. He would message me like, "Hey, we have powerlifting. You should join us." And I was like, "Oh yeah, we'll see." And then we had one kid at Yelm who competed like basically by himself, and he went to all the meets. And then he went to state and he bombed on his deadlift. And I remember just thinking like, I could definitely have helped him at state. I could have easily had him hook grip something or figure out a way to get that one deadlift up, and he could have won the state title. Next year, I'm gonna start powerlifting, and I had no clue. Like, I mean, I think back to myself, like I had no idea what I was doing on like how to build a club, how to bring kids in. But what I do know is I know how to recruit. I know we have crazy lifters, and just in our weight training classes with our 3 teachers, I have to somehow appeal powerlifting to them to get those kids out. So my first job was recruit. And I had my one kid, um, and he got a couple of his friends. And basically, what I would do in our weight training classes, I go to our like best lifters. I'd show them the results of state from the year before. I'm like, hey, this is where you'd probably be. You'd be like top 3, top 5 at state. That'd be kind of cool, right? And oh yeah, I'm interested in that. And then we went to our first meet and kind of started from there. So that's how that club evolved to now we have. They got 65 kids compete at least in one meet this year. In 2 years, I went from uh 7-ish, I think, something like that at our first meet to 44 at state, 65 on the roster. It's just blown up.
So, of course, I'm assuming you don't have to recruit anymore with those numbers.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, yes, and I still have that like back of my head, like I need to make sure I fill the weight classes out. I'm trying to figure out how to get people in, and now I'm like, oh boy, actually, I can't figure this out, y'all. You need to stop coming in. So
So
that
it's
as a federation, we have restrictions on how many kids we can actually have at each meet.
yeah.
Is blown up so much that like we'd have 300 plus kids at a meet, and we'd be there for 10 hours. So we had 3 lifters per weight class at each meet from each team, which not every team has as big a roster as I do.
Mhm.
Some have smaller ones, some don't. So for me, it's managing, trying to figure out how to get all my lifters in those meets throughout the year to try and get into state.
Okay. Now it sounds like most of your lifters are lifting for the sport through y'all's weightlifting classes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say I have 4 categories of lifters. The first category is your lifting class. So that's probably 90% of my girls. They lift in Kayla Gable's class. We have a ox gym that's like next to our weight room. And when I first got there, there's a storage room that had just storage. So
Mhm.
I cleaned out the storage and I brought in 3 racks. So we call it our pocket weight room. It's for night. So Kayla Gable uses that. She has 3 racks for squat, bench, and whatever else. She uses that plus they lift on the gym floor with mats. So those are 90% of my girls probably just lifting class. So for like that 30 minutes, 40-minute workout, that's what they're doing.
Now is that
And
5 days a week, or are y'all on like a B type schedule?
yeah, well, class is 5 days a week. We usually lift 4 of them. So, Wednesdays, we have dynamics or makeups for kids who miss, class. The next category lifter is the lifter who lifts in class, but then also does a sport. So they might be in sport season and they're still lifting. Um, usually after school is with their coach, or maybe the after school lifting. We have a coach who does after school lifting, but those are like the next category. And I try to have those kids do their sport first. And
Mhm,
I basically, when I tell people what we do in Yelm, is we don't create powerlifters. We are trying to create athletes,
mhm,
and powerlifting is a byproduct of that. Like we do power cleans all the time.
mhm,
It's not an activity we do for powerlifting, but it actually helps our athletes. The next category lifter is the kid who lifts in our class, but then also lifts outside of school because they're a gym rat, and they do their own thing, which we do have those guys. We have a local gym called Get Fit that literally is on the fence line of our school, so a lot of our kids go there. And then the last category of lifter is the one who doesn't lift in class, but they lift outside of school. And then I have a program for them. So I actually have a program for kids who have no like direction, and then they follow that one at home or at a Get Fit or after school
mhm,
lifting, or they go to after school lifting and they follow that program. So it kind of like blend. I mean, we have different levels of where kids are,
mhm.
and because we have kids who are multi-sport athletes. I have kids who don't do any sport and they're just gym rats. So it's just managing like where they are in their development.
Okay. So now does you said you had 4 categories and you have 60 kids, so I'm assuming you're not necessarily writing individual programs for each athlete. You're probably building them by the 4 categories, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So like I get videos. Man, I get so many videos from kids filming their lifts, and then I
Mhm.
message them like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I feel like I'm an online coach. I should get paid for this." And I message them like what things they should try and do. And then I try to go through the programming, what they're doing. And our kids are weird sometimes. They'll be like, I got back and biceps that day for 2 hours. You're doing back and biceps? Okay. Let's try and modify that to something else. So yeah,
I mean, you
I
gotta
get a
work
lot.
your biceps out a long time because that's where you get all the
Yeah,
girls from. I
I
bet you
know.
hadn't
And
had
some
a female that do back and biceps for 2 hours, have you?
no, no, not. And I sometimes I'll tell kids like, because I have kids who are training for college, and it's the spring sport ish. So they're like, I don't really want to change what I'm doing and get ready for college. I'm like, that's fine. You keep doing what you're doing. Just show up and compete.
Mhm.
That's all you have to do. Just show up and compete and do the best you can. And usually that works out pretty well. Sometimes they show up and then that kind of kicks the fire in them. I had some kids this year that like really doubled down and they really focused on powerlifting. Some just kept doing their 7-on-7 sport, or they're doing track or doing wrestling, and they just kind of competed.
Yeah. That's what like I tell a lot of people, I think there's 2 levels to this sport, and what I love about this sport is you can be as serious or as casual with it as you want. Especially at the teenage level, I definitely feel that it's a great off-season sport because no teenager has maximized their strength output yet. So why not actually focus on strength building? I say that because I don't think that's the current how do I want it? Social media push. I see speed and agility work forced on some of these teenagers a lot more than I do strength.
Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, both are highly important, but I just don't. I think it probably depends on the sport that you're playing as well. But I do feel that a solid strength block or push is fallen in the last 5 or 6 years as social media has been showing all these balanced, squats on the Benoit ball or the balance balls, and you got LeBron James doing weird things in the locker room, because
yeah. I'd
everybody
be interested, even like if they're lifting, I'd be surprised because I would say track is a good example. There's a lot of kids who do track, and one they'll either don't do anything in the
Mhm,
wintertime. They show up the track, and then they're 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 not ready for track at all, and to run full speed. And usually what happens is they blow a hammy at
Mhm.
some point in their year, probably because their muscle development is different. Like, oh, they have a dominant leg versus non-dominant leg, and they haven't worked out at all, and they've usually blown a hamstring. That's pretty common for a track kid. We try to avoid that as much as we can, but some of those kids who go club track and they just run all the
Mhm.
time, and then they get to high school and they're blowing a hamstring because they have no development base to go off of that. And right now we're almost in our league and districts, and we have kids who are like, "Oh, you blew a hamstring? Oh man, that that sucks because now
Mhm.
you can't make it to state."
Yep.
So
Like I said, you're gonna hear if you listen to some of these podcasts with some of the coaches, I sound like I'm very anti-speed and agility, and I'm really not. I just I don't think these kids have developed their tendon strength, their ligament strength, or maximized what their strength investment can be in their sport. And I don't see enough hardcore, I shouldn't say hardcore, but I don't see enough emphasis on actual building strength. I see that because you can work out and not be hitting your strength, not developing strength. And I don't
yeah,
think
you're
coaches,
grinding gears
yeah,
basically.
you're just going up and down in a squat, but you're doing the same weight or, for the weird rep schemes or something like that. And I just feel that, for a 13, 15, 17-year old, you haven't developed your full strength potential in my head, unless you're, and even if you're running track, strength is going to take you a lot farther developing it than 5 days a week speed drills.
Yeah,
So,
we have and I always think myself to Mark Ribito is a kind of like a guy I followed a lot, and
mhm,
my program was kind of based off him. And I remember him saying like, "You have these teenage boys who are dripping with testosterone,
mhm,
and how can they not be increasing 100
mhm,
pounds on their squat in
yep,
4 months?"
yep,
And so when I look at kids and like, you didn't PR and like been working out for a month. What are we doing? And so I just go back and look at the workout routine. How much are they actually pushing the weights? What their rep scheme is. So
mhm,
in high school, kids will improve just by like even just showing up and really just kind of moving weights around a little bit. They'll improve.
mhm,
We have for our weight training classes, we do probably 6 week blocks. It varies. The schedule. We have a spring break or something coming up, or Christmas. We have to kind of plan. We try to do 6 week blocks, and that first one, those kids, they hit their max. Like, oh wow, I got 205 on my bench. The next 6 week block, they all blow through their maxes and they're
mhm,
all excited. And then we have a PR bell that kids ring, and they ring it, and then we all go 1, 2, 3, yeah, and then try to get excited, and the bell's ringing all the time. That third block, and that's when I'm like, okay, y'all, this is telling you right now, the bell ain't gonna be ringing much today.
mhm,
This is where you're gonna learn that if you didn't do that work and train and really push the weight that last 6 weeks, you ain't gonna be improving much. So that's
yep.
kind of learning experience for a lot of kids. That third lift or that second time, like, oh, I really didn't improve that much. Interesting. So then they have to go back and look at why.
It's definitely, and that's one of the reasons why I love the sport, because unfortunately you're gonna have one or two kids in that mentality. Once they stop hitting those exponential gains, they're gonna be like, "Well, I don't like this anymore."
Yeah. Well, the barbell is humbling
Yep.
no matter what. You can cheat through other things, but the barbell was always going to
Yeah.
tell you what
Especially
the truth is.
especially after time. Like I said, you can cheat it for the first 6 months. After about 6 months to a year, that barbell is going to make you put the time and work in order for it to go up. And that's what I try to teach a lot of my kids is, enjoy the first year. It's going to be a fun, exciting,
Chasing numbers.
nonstop. Yep. But that second year is where you become a true athlete, a true sports athlete, because that's when you're having to put blood, sweat, and tears into that bar. You're having to push farther than you've ever pushed. If you can walk correctly the next day after a great leg day, you didn't hit legs hard enough. once you get
Yeah,
past
and
that 1 or 2 years mark.
for a lot of our kids who are multi-sport athletes, it comes and goes. Maybe they don't have that they don't train, during the week in the weight room for their sport because basketball is kind of a good one, and they don't have weight room scheduled for them, usually, so the kids go play basketball for the season, they haven't really lifted much, and they go back to the weight room
Mhm,
and kind of start that linear progression over again, and then they go to track, and then it goes back and forth.
mhm,
So I get high schoolers, like, I did that going through, high school. I would train really hard off season, then I would do my sport, and then I'd go off season, train really hard, and do my sport. So like, I never really had like that consistent a full year
yeah,
of lifting until I was probably, I think, my junior year of high school. I kind of figured out I need to lift outside of my sport.
mhm.
So for kids, it takes a while to learn.
Um, so let's get into a little bit about, because I know some of your kids compete in federational competition as well. So let's explain to the audience, what are some of the differences that you see at a state level powerlifting meet and a what I would consider a federational powerlifting meet like USAPL, Powerlifting America, USPA, or something like that. Tell us a little bit about what the differences are I know each state is different. Washington has some different rules than like Texas or Wisconsin,
Yeah.
but just in general terms, what are some of the differences you see between the 2?
So our federation has been around for quite some time, and it's a um, we're volunteer based. Everything's volunteer. So but it also keeps the cost down. We charge $25 registration fee for kids, and we have volunteer refs, volunteer tables. Most coaches are volunteers, so it's all volunteer.
So does that just go to the school hosting the meet?
Yeah, yeah. Usually, we're managing what we want to do as a federation as far as like moving forward, because we probably need to actually get money into the organization as a whole to buy comp racks or be
Mhm,
able to buy chalk at the meets or
mhm.
something like that. So our federation it's all volunteer. We made some massive changes from last year to this year. I brought lifting class in for our meets. That has been a huge help. It
Oh,
actually
yeah.
cut down on so much time. Last year, our meet director and our president would be handwriting cards for all
Mhm.
the kids. Everything was handwritten, and then he would input the data individually for 300 kids. I don't know how
And,
much time he
like,
spent on that.
I assume he did it for, like, Excel or to upload to
Yeah,
something?
I can't remember the name of the program was, but it was a program they had. I mean, I think they used Wilks for the overall lifters. So yeah, so we brought in lifting cast, which has helped a ton, and it it was a learning curve for a lot of coaches and kids. Like I hosted the first meet, and we do things so much differently and better at the last meet. I actually hosted the first meet and the last meet this year, and from the first one to the last one, we finally got into a groove of figuring how to actually run a meet with lifting casts, how to make things better, more efficient. So
I would it's a lot different than traditional lifting cast too, because you are running so many racks at one time, opposed to
yeah,
like or 2 or 3 platform. Even at like a national level, they're only running like 4. But at a big
yeah,
state meet, y'all could run 10 racks, can y'all not? I mean,
yeah. It's
yeah.
think about as much as you want on lifting casts. We had 7.
Hmm.
We have 5 for the federation, and then I borrow 1 or 2 from a local gym who actually the guy's alumni from Yelm, so lets me borrow it. So yeah, we'll run like usually 6 racks, and
That just
I'm
makes the
trying.
lifting cast a little more complicated, not only from a setup, but from a management standpoint, a little bit.
Yeah, only does really for me, the meet director,
Yeah.
and
That's
because the table people after like our first, second, and third meet, there's people who already knew how to use it, and once
mhm.
you like learn how to use it, it's so
It's
easy.
so easy. Yeah.
We had a meet that was in North Beach High School, which is like 2 3 hours from here. I didn't go to it. My buddy from Oli, he didn't go to it, but he was able to manage it basically from there, like
Hmm.
from his computer. So it's made a huge difference. So we have our high school federation. It's called Washington State High School Powerlifting. And then we have USAPL, which is the dominant federation in our state. There are Powerlifting America, but it's probably 2 meets a year, and the only couple of gyms that do it, Iron Temple in Seattle runs PA only because Huascar Carpio lives out of there, and he's a world champion, so
Mhm.
it's like he helps with, PA stuff, but other than that, though, it's USAPL dominant. So, last year, we I was watching high school nationals with my friend Ryan from Oli, and I was like, "Man, there's only 4 kids from our state going. We definitely can have kids go, and, like, we should be able to fix this." So, we got with, my buddy Ryan, and Spanway Fitness is the gym that lets us borrow, racks, and we hosted a high school only meet for USAPL in
Mhm.
August, and I got my 8 kids, and Ryan got, like, that 8 kids, and I think we had 40 or something like that probably competed total, and, that was to get them qualified for nationals this year. Luckily, in, like, November, USCPL
Change
allowed
the
all
rules.
state federations when yeah, and that was actually was a big game changer because then I told all our coaches, like, "Hey, if you had a kid do qualify as state last year with their total, they can go to nationals." So I think we had 40 kids from our state almost compete at nationals this year. So we went from 4 to 40, which was a big impact. In fact, Nora Intercine from Olympia, she got second at nationals. My JV 274 kilogram, he won nationals, and we had some kids who got top 5.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool to see that. But the difference between the high school federation and USPL is level of like not only rule following, but stricter rules,
Yeah.
depth, mainly our depth and squat. Our rule book, and actually, and I've tried to change this, but I wasn't able to this year. Our depth says parallel with knee to hip crease. USPL, I think it actually says below. Yeah, that actually the word is below. So it's not that much difference. The commands are different for bench. It's funny because my kid who went to nationals, he's my 123 at our first state meet. He rolls or this our federation meet. He rolls in and he's doing bench, and then say the bar's loaded. He gets up and he goes this. He gets up. And he's sitting there just waiting. I was like, start, and I just yelled it out for him, and then he started. Like he
Mhm.
totally remembered USCPL rules, which I was like, oh, that's right. He hasn't lifted in our federation yet. He only knows USCPL, so that's the big difference. And at nationals, the margin for error is like so much thinner.
Mhm.
Like you have 5 pounds separating fourth to 10th for a lot of weight classes.
At USAPL nationals or at
Yeah, USPL
yeah.
nationals. Yeah, like we probably had the top 3 of all weight classes in our state, this last week, pretty much decided. Like, you knew who the top 3 are gonna be, top 4 from almost each weight class. At nationals, I mean, there was kids pulling world records at each
Mhm.
session, and it was, really fun. Our kids loved it. Um, Humbling, but it was a fun experience for them. But yeah, there's a big difference between USAPL and our federation is like the rules, you know, payment and how much money you spend is big too, and
Yeah,
then
I mean,
travel.
25 versus 150.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. Not to count you had to fly to Wisconsin and
Well, the year before I was at in Louisiana, I was
yeah.
like, man, we missed out on going to Louisiana.
You gonna
It
so is
was fun.
Texas in your future next year?
Yeah, I kids who they're already talking to me about going to nationals, and actually, well, I targeted the kids I wanted to go to nationals because of I thought they'd be committed, they'd actually go. It's a
Mhm.
big commitment,
Mhm.
you're flying out your family, you're paying all this money for hotels and stuff. Um, but then this year after state, uh, I have a lot more kids who are interested and want to go. And a big shout out to my female lifter. Her name is Liberty. She's my only girl who went to nationals, and she she barely qualified at our first meet. She qualified in her last deadlift, and she was so excited. So she goes nationals. She PRs in like almost every
Mhm.
event. Um, she didn't place well. I mean, she placed somewhere in the middle of the pack,
Mhm.
but the amount of like positivity in our group chat for all our girl lifters was insane. Like, they were going nuts for her. Yeah. I don't think she knows how much, like, she impacted our program by just going to nationals and
Yeah.
competing. So I tried telling her, like, "You don't know how much you've improved our program by just competing." And all our girls are excited, and they wanna go to nationals, and they want,
Mhm.
they just kind of lit a fire into our girls' team even more.
So
Um,
I talked to a lot of coaches about our program. We actually work with probably 70% non-traditional athletes. 70% of my kids have stopped playing sports 2, 3, 4 years ago and are just starting to like weight lift and want to become an athlete again. And so we only have a requirement as long as you qualify, and I'm willing to take you. Now, your parents still have to find, the financial, and we try to, and we'll get into this in the next segment here in a second. But, as long as your parents are willing to, take you, we do try to help cover some of that cost as an organization. But I think qualifying is a good enough achievement for you to get the exposure, because what I tell all of my parents when I'm explaining, hey, this is going to be expensive, but you don't understand the reward that they're going to get, even if they don't place top 5. They're going to meet hundreds of kids that love the same thing they love, that they can talk about how hard they work out, how much, what the difference between their school and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you don't get this in any other national competition hardly, because like even if you go to state for like say football, the teams aren't getting together, they're not talking, they're not high-fiving each other, they're not cheering each other on. It's a competition against each other, whereas in powerlifting, it's such a different kind of mentality
yeah,
in competition. These kids
yeah, it's
will
weird.
literally push them, "Go hit this PR, beat me." And I'm like, I can't explain to them enough how beneficial being around that many kids loving the same sport, cheering them on. And so I have a rule, all my kids are required to go talk to people.
Yeah, we just had state and, I mean, we had the most epic, battle in our 75
Mhm,
kilogram weight class. We had 4 guys who broke, 14 state records or tied the record in just one day. It was crazy. But the amount of positivity from all those guys, they all wanted each other to beat the record. They
mhm,
all wanted to happen. It's a weird sport, and I tell kids, like, you're gonna have competing against other kids in your weight class at our schools, but everyone wants that bar to go up.
mhm.
Now, as a coach in my mind, I'm like, "Ooh, fail.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go," I'm thinking about placement and all that stuff, but they're not. They're just thinking
yeah.
about getting that PR. Yeah,
And
so it was,
even when they don't fail as a coach, you're like, "Dang, that was a good grind," or whatever. But
yo, yeah, yeah. I still I'm like, "Oh, that was a great lift, dude. Nice job," But I'm like, "Oh, man, dang, that was really good lift."
and this is just a funny insight into my life and my marriage. But I tell my wife she has to be the one that's wishing the kids bad luck for the other teams. I have to be the example as the coach and be like, cheering the other kid that is about to beat my kid on. I was like, but honey, none of our kids are seeing you in the audience. You're the one wishing bad vibes on them. So my wife does all that for me as I stay the example of, wishing that next competitor good luck and cheering them on from the sidelines and stuff like that. So that's awesome. I want to get into another example or the next section of this and talk to you about. So you're an official club at Yelm. You're not a sport. And what you told me earlier was that basically just means you're not school funded by any means. So I would really like to get into, honestly, because I think this will help me because I'm sometimes jealous of how you perform your social media and what you do compared to what I do sometimes. But get into to the strategy and kind of the things that you do, or how you you perceive social media and things like that in your fundraising, because you have to raise all your registration fees. Luckily, your equipment's provided, right? Or mostly.
Yeah, mostly. I got some donated from schools, but
But what about, so, and I didn't ask, in your school federation, singlets aren't required, correct? Or are they?
no, and I actually made it a thing, like, a in my mind, I wanted to bring the singlets back. So last year I didn't make my kids, but I encouraged them to wear singlets. I borrowed them from like their old wrestling singlets, and this year I bought some,
Mhm.
and kids really wanted to wear those. And
Yeah,
then it kind of moved from there. I think a lot of other schools had kids with singlets on, so I'm trying to bring that back.
yeah. So, if you don't mind, and if it's too specific, kinda talk to me. I'd like to know kinda like what your required budget for a season is from just registration fees and travel and things like that, and then go about telling just giving some examples of how you kinda achieve that because me and you talked about this earlier. Unfortunately, there's only about 6 or 8 school or states with high school federations and high school level meets, associations, and I really think that number needs to grow exponentially. I would love to see in the next decade, as the sport continues to grow in the youth and in the teen, we get to 15, 20 states that have these associations. And I think this will be a good example from a organization that has had to dramatically increase their funding as the club grew over just a year. How have you done that? How have you kind of managed that? And, what are some of the things you require from the parents? What are some of the things you do from a social media standpoint? And just kind of explain, does that make sense? You don't have to give any trade secrets, but just kind of help for the ones that are like for me, I would love, and I have an idea for next year of doing like an online competition and maybe making like a booster club donation to the school that wins. I think that's my creative way of trying to get the schools interested in maybe figuring out what powerlifting is. I want to hold an online competition and start that way. But
Yeah.
kind of talk to us, okay, if some clubs or some schools are getting interested in doing this, and we all know that schools aren't going to fund it right away until the masses, until they can see how it's going to be beneficial for the school. It's going to stay a club. How do you go about that? And what are some strategies you use, not only from a fundraising, but from a social media, from the parents, and so on?
So how do I build a program? All right. Well, one, I think it's a sport that like every school can have, and everyone has got a weight room, so
Yeah.
that's like the big part of like your training facility is already built in almost in every high school. And so for me, like I started with so our first meet we didn't go to last year. We got snowed out. Okay, and we only have 5 to qualify, so that's gone. Our first meet we went to, we had 7 kids, and we took 3rd. I don't know how. Somehow we got 3rd place. So I knew
Mm.
if I got some success, then like, and I kids saw like, oh, you can win in this, you can earn something, then they'll start coming in. So we went from our first meet of 7 kids, then our next meet, that's where we really started the ball rolling, and we took first place as a boys team. Then it just exploded, right? So kids started coming out of the woodwork. Oh, what's this powerlifting? There's you guys are in first place and all this stuff. So I used social media as much as I could. So I knew if I used that, then I would get exposure and kids would come out. And so then now I'm like, okay, how do I pay for all this? Because it's now I've got 65 kids in my roster, and that's a lot of money to go
So
through.
65 times 25, you're talking about, I don't know, what's that? Like $1,500 for one
Yeah,
competition, just for the
about
registration fees.
yeah. So we last year I had I made kids pay for the registration fees unless
So
they needed
your
it.
parents.
Yeah, parents. And honestly, most kids and parents were happy to pay
Yeah.
25 bucks. And in our in Yelm right now, we failed a levy a couple times. So kids have to pay to play, and it's $200 to pay for each sport. 25 bucks to pay for a registration fee is like
Mhm.
now parents so much better than paying $200 to play a sport. Fundraise through a myriad of different organizations. I've kind of like narrowed it down now, like what I want to do next year. Uh, did like Money Dolly was one of the ones we did. Fundraising activity. Hosting a meet is a big one because then I can generate money from there.
Okay, so explain. So once again, hosting a meet, you get all the registrations.
Yeah. So
So does that go
I
straight to the club, or does the school
yeah
charge
no I
for the
don't that
facility?
money. Yeah, they do. Yeah,
I
the
kind
money
of
goes to
knew
our
there was.
club. Yeah. That's so I hosted a meet. We have a December meet, and that's a, like, pre-meet for our federation, and we did it as an online competition. So I did that last year. I think I had 14 kids come, and I think I charged them $10.
Mhm.
So I had about $100 in my
Mhm.
account. And then, we fundraised with, I had a couple donations from parents and a couple donations from alumni. I have one alumni who's a big, powerlifter, and he helped out with hooked me up with Pioneer Lifting, and Pioneer donated 15 belts that were like, um, they couldn't sell.
Mhm.
That was a huge, huge donation. That was really awesome. But
I wanna just shout out Pioneer again
yeah,
that you did that.
Pioneer
Pioneer
Lifting.
Pioneer has been a great, supporter of ours. So, and I just I'm this is how excited I am. So, I'm going to it's called GymCon. It's a, home gym expo. It's here in Kentucky this year. It's in Louisville. I literally picked the booth next to them because we're gonna go sell merchandise and try to fundraise. Just so I could say thank you because of all the generosity, not only they do for like high school sports and youth clubs, but just for the sport overall. They're an amazing company. And if you're a power lifter listening to this and you're not supporting the companies that really are giving large portions of their proceeds back to the sport, you're doing yourself a disservice. So that's my rant real quick on supporting Pioneer.
Pioneer, they donated wrist wraps,
Hmm.
belts for us. So that was a big help. And then once I started like the ball rolling on powerlifting, then I reached out to, local powerlifters who are, Oscar Carpio in Seattle. He's a world champion. He came in and he donated for our overall lifters, our first meet, $100 SPD card. So that
Hmm.
was once he came in, then like kids, oh, this is really cool. Oscar Carpio came in.
Hmm.
Um, Now he donated to the cause that helped us. And then once I was able to host a meet, then I actually got some funds to be able to pay for registration fees. So this year I paid for all our registration fees but one meet. And then we had fundraising through Money Dolly, which is a online. It's the company that does the cards for footballs, but they also
Hmm.
do other things. So we did that. That was a big fundraiser for us. Snap fundraiser was one I did, and I just try to do as much as I can. But now I'm like to the point where people know who we are. I've had random companies in Yelm donate to us.
Hmm.
They message me like, "Hey, I'm a powerlifter. I want my company to donate $200."
Hmm.
So they'll donate check to me. So yeah, that's and then now that we were like kind of big and people know who we are, it's been easier. Before it was just like, "What's powerlifting? What are you guys?
Hmm.
You're a club," and I have to manage with my school where that money goes to, and I've basically kind of diverted everything to a booster club because it makes it easier to be kind of separate from the school. Now the school does charge me custodial fees for our meets,
Hmm.
which we have to pay, which is I'm totally fine with paying. Um, but then we don't have to pay for racks because we those are donated. That's nice.
Hmm.
And everything's volunteer based. So my plan for next year is to hopefully be able to pay for all registration fees for all our meets and figure out how to pay for nationals in some way for kids.
Hmm.
Um, so fundraising has been it's I don't like any coach says I want to be coach so I can fundraise. It is the worst part of
It
coaching.
really is.
It is, but it's a necessity. So now that we're somewhat big, next year when we do our Money Dolly fundraiser, it should go better because we have more people to help out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I went from like $100 budget to we're probably at least in the K range right now, somewhere around there. And it's just been fundraised with different organizations and getting money from one company to another company. And I think next year I'm gonna try and get sponsors, try and be on our t-shirts.
Mhm.
So yeah,
So I
I've
know
tried everything.
personally, like I said, I'm lucky I've only had to do the last 2 years, we've only done one parent fundraising, like your Money Dolly type thing each year. I personally go to a lot of meets and sell merchandise just because who's gonna support a youth club more than the lifters that do the sport as well? And then that's probably about the 2 big focuses. Of course, as the organization president slash founder, I won't even go into how much money I've probably put into the organization itself. I don't wanna put that on air and my wife find out.
I'm definitely in the negative for
Yeah,
sure. Definitely paid a lot of money on my own account. Hope my wife doesn't find out. But I try to make it as even as possible.
yep. But what I was gonna say is, I wanted to talk about that because I still think it's such hard and every sport is doing it. So I like to talk to that with other clubs in the same sport so that they can kind of find out what's working for them. I do know the more kids, so we have about 15 to 20 kids in our program right now. We're down a little bit, and a lot of that's because I've added strongman to our sport listing. So instead of trying to recruit, I've kind of added another sport, which is like a side sport. We do powerlifting through the week, and then 2 times a year, we host, like, 8 weekend strongman events, and then we host a comp, so but the bigger you are and the more recognition you get, it's a lot easier to go after those businesses, and that's
Yeah,
where, as anybody that does fundraising know, that's where you can really kind of pad your budget because, it's a lot easier for a successful business to donate 100, $250 a year for a shirt sponsorship that, you get 10 or 15 companies on compared to, parents trying to come up with hundreds of dollars for their sport. So,
yeah, and social media has helped with that. I mean, I am a big social media advocate, not only just for spreading our overall reach, but also I follow a lot of certain lifters and coaches, and I
mhm,
always share those stories with my kids.
yep,
And then when they're trying to find like how do I improve my bench, like oh, okay, hey, follow this guy right here on
mhm,
this bench press. And he has some really good tips. Um, yeah, I use social media for a lot of it's my communication for most of my kids. It's my kind of coaching tool because a lot of them send me videos, too many videos. My phone is full because it's also my
Meta
how
can
do I
handle
spread
the
my
data.
yeah, how can I spread my reach, is social media. So yeah, social media has been a big impact for us, and I've tried helping out some other schools with that. I run also our federation page, so
Yeah,
that's a big impact because now we'll have our big lifts on there. The kid at 181 pounds deadlifting 600 pounds.
mm,
It's an insane video. So yeah, I'm really a big social media advocate because I think it could be a really positive thing. I don't like when parents or they're like, "Ah, social media is the devil. It's really detrimental to our society." It's not going anywhere.
yeah,
So I've tried to teach kids in especially with phones in class, like there's a time and place for things,
mhm,
and social media can be used for a positive thing.
yeah.
So, like in
Listen,
class, we go through teaching how to actually film lifts because man, kids will do the point 0.5 like sideways view with the bar in a way, and like how is this good depth? I have no clue. I
yep,
can't see anything. So I also teach them how to actually film their lifts, where they film them. So yeah, it's been so I use social media for a lot of things.
mhm. I think the last thing I really wanna get into then with you is kind of talk to me about now that you've seen some kids go through a full year and things like that, I'd really like to get your perspective on what you're seeing the sport of powerlifting do differently than you see in some of the other sports that you've been part of, and that's not only from a mental and a physical, mental, but also the ability to reach certain kids because I preach it all the time. So I like to get other people's perspective. But what makes powerlifting such a such an important sport that schools should get into it because it can do this that other sports can't? If does that make kind of sense of
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get into?
Oh yeah. And I think if you ask anyone, the community is like such a positive thing because, like we said before, you have that you might be competing with someone in your weight class, but everyone wants that bar to go up. So one of the things I did this year, at whenever I hosted a meet, I tried to get a local guest or whatever.
Mhm.
So we got Oscar Capio to come to our first meet, literally the week before Sheffield, and then he got the world record in the deadlift. So I told him, "Hey, you're welcome." So he came and I gave him a little posters. We all the kids signed it. Good luck at Sheffield. Um, so uh, kids loved that. Kids were like having him sign their belts, you know. So that was I brought that in, and the next meet we had another guy come in who's he got second at military nationals, and then he kept coming. Like he came to our state meet.
Mhm.
We had Lucas Hatton. He's the America's Strongest Man.
Mhm.
He's competing at the World's Strongest Man here in I think about a week. He
Mhm.
came to our state meet. Oh my gosh, dude, kids were nuts. Like they
Mhm.
once they figured out who he was, and I will tell you as how humbling it was for me to watch him. He was spotting, loading,
Mhm.
like he was helping sweating with our
Mhm.
kids and just supporting them. So it's a huge sport where like the community is such a positive thing. Even after high school, you go to meet and you'll probably meet the same people you saw from last time at the national meet. Our kids made friends with kids in our state who live in different areas and they follow each other on social media and they talk to each other. So as a sport, like powerlifting is the community itself is huge and so positive for everyone that I think more schools can easily add it to their program or add it to their sport or add it to their club, and it'd be probably pretty big impact for them.
What have you seen about the type of kids that you're getting compared to I know that you talked about, you having a lot of females and stuff, which is not always the case when you think about lifting. So just talk about a little bit about the difference of the type of kids that powerlifting can reach versus, football or softball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like Neil, like I said, we try and breed athletes, and powerlifting is a byproduct of it. I have like every single sport slash community group you have at school on the team. I have kids who don't do anything but lift. I have kids who do multi sports all through the year. So I have to manage like they're wrestling, they're doing track, they're doing 7-on-7 football, and they're powerlifting at the same exact time. So I have every type of kid. Our female athletes this year were, there are a lot of wrestlers on there, a lot of kids who do some track kids, but a lot of our girl lifters were just lifting because
Mhm.
Kayla Gable, my assistant coach, she does a great job with the girls and supporting them and loving them. And because of that, they started lifting. And in class, there are like 4 or 5 of them together, and we would post like their scores on the board, and we give shout outs to them. And then the other girls see that, and then they join. So it kind of like steamrolled in that effect.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I have kids who are like one of my kids is a his dad's a big CrossFitter,
Mm.
and he just kind of does CrossFit and he just kind of started joining, and he does nothing else. He just lifts. And
Mhm.
I have a kid who do multi-sport athletes. So it's a sport I think that like doesn't really have stereotypes to it because it could be anyone, especially that really small weight classes. Those are the ones where you find like those kids are like, oh, I can't power. I'm not very strong. Actually, you would be big surprised. Like just come compete and you'll find out. Like so yeah, I have all kinds of kids
I
and
I
towns.
I tell my kids it's not a sport that requires upfront talent, it's a sport that requires dedication and
Yeah.
persistence.
It's one thing where it's what you put into it, you'll definitely get out of it. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
And I don't unfortunately, not all sports are like that, I compare it to a lot of, like, cross country, in my opinion. I've al every school I've ever talked to, the cross country team doesn't have a skilled level to be on the team. As long as you're willing to go run, you might not place, but they'll let you run for them. There's not name another sport like that.
Yeah, or
Football, you have to have
athleticism just
talent.
gets you there.
Baseball,
Yeah.
you know I don't even know if the bowling team maybe doesn't have a requirement, but other than those 2, that's all I can think of off the level of sports that is at my local high school. And I feel with what I don't know if this is like in Washington, but unfortunately, recreational sports are dying at
Yeah.
the younger level.
As a father who's got kids doing activities, I'm already seeing like, man, my kid's 9 and we're playing flag football, and I coach the team that has everyone on it, and I'm against all these teams who have their select team basically. So it's definitely becoming a
Yeah, and I feel like with rec level dying is your kids aren't getting all of what they need from early development from these sports mentalities. So to have a sport, and not only a physical sport, a and don't get me wrong, bowling and cross country are physical sports, but they don't read the same toughness or mindset that lifting heavy or like football, it's truly physical. You know, you're the potential of getting hurt, the potential of, just that. I don't even want to say manliness because women are almost dominating the sport right now with, but you get what I'm saying? It's just something different. Like you're not going to feel the same way as hitting a strike or running a new PR on cross country, but knowing that you've just picked up or squatted or benched this a massive amount of weight that you didn't think humanly possible was for you. It just gives you something different inside you. And I think that if schools could realize that it can hit all these levels of kids. I mean, I have band kids in my program. I have underweight, overweight kids. I mean, I have a kid that's literally I have a female that is 5'9", 119 pounds.
I have a 97 pound,
Is she 5'9" though?
probably 5'1".
Yeah. So just think about 5'9" at 119.
Yeah, that's true, man.
Stick. She's a
Yeah.
stick. She has never been accepted in any sport because, she's always been so tall where she's kind of clumsy. She doesn't have the physical capability to play like softball or something like that. This sport has turned her into an athlete because it accepted her. And I just don't think that I hope in the next 10 or 15 years that more schools in every state can adopt this so that there's a opportunity for those kind of kids to become an athlete.
Yeah, it definitely is all backgrounds for powerlifting, and the big thing is, like, the community of, like, you get a big lift at meet, one hugs you, and you don't get that at track meet. Like,
No,
you don't beat someone in 100, and then that other person you just beat hugs you.
not only that, but just think, and I just thought about this. You know how sports parents are nowadays with the yelling and fighting. You don't have that near as much in powerlifting as you do other sports.
No.
All right, man. I think that's been good so far. I like to finish these podcasts with two questions. So I'm gonna ask you these two questions, and then we're gonna call it a day. When you're trying to recruit or when you're trying to talk to a teenager about the sport, what is your go-to sell?
Pitch?
Yeah, of why powerlifting is such a great sport. And I do that because I want the kids that are on the fence to learn because everybody has a different one. But what is your go-to pitch about why powerlifting is so awesome?
Well, I think it depends on the kid, like, like, you know him. So I first started doing it, it was like, "Hey, you can place top 3, easily, in the state." So I try to appeal to their, like, competitiveness. Um, then it was some kids, I'm like, "Hey, this is a sport where, like, everyone wants to bar it up. So you might be really nervous about what if I fail? No one is cheering for you to fail. No
Mhm.
one wants that. Everyone wants a bar go up." So like appealing to that community aspect, and then I also tell kids, and then I try to appeal to the ones who are like athletes and do multi-sport things. Like, yeah, you keep training the way you're doing. This is just another way you compete. You can get out and compete and show up and compete in a different way, and that'll help you be more competitive in your other sports. So it'll only benefit you. And then I have like kids who are training for like a college sport, and I'm like, oh, is there an activity where you could get train and get stronger and healthier for your sport in college, I think I know something. You can do powerlifting. So yeah, I've tried to do myriad of ways to do it, and now that I actually have a lot of kids on the team, it helps because they are now the ones who are
They're your recruiters.
yeah, especially with my girls. My girls are super supportive of each other, and they all like our girl chat group is different than our guy chat group. They're so supportive of each other, and they're sharing videos with everyone. And then our guys, you know, they bring on their friends. That, like, hey, I have a friend who lifts, you know, 3 plates bench. He should come in. I'm like, yeah, you should. So I've been pitching it in different ways to every kid.
And then I always ask this question because I really think there's ways of that we could do it better. What in powerlifting or what does powerlifting, whether it be a state association or a federation, what can it do better to get more teenagers, get more school athletes, to even get more schools involved in the sport? What can it do to kind of build um, its impact or its ability to get kids involved?
Well, I mean, for us, because we're all clubs, it really takes that one person who wants to start it. And like last year, I emailed all my friends who I know teach PE and weight training, and I'm like, hey, at very least, if you could be like this, the organizational person, and just send them kids information, and they can just come
Mhm.
to the sport. So we added like 6 schools this last year to our federation. So yeah, it takes that one person who wants to just start it, and then my hope was to like once that gets started at a school, it's kind of like my school where it kind of snowballed into it. So it takes that one person at each school. The sport in general has been it. There's so many different federations out there, and it's really hard to like IPF versus USAPL, Article 14. It's really hard to explain to
Mhm.
kids and like what this means and why
Mhm.
they're doing it. So that's been a frustrating thing for our sport. I love competitiveness. I think we need to have federations competing each other, but they're like almost eating each other now.
Mhm.
Like it's not helping our sport to
Yeah,
have
I think
IPF and
yeah.
PA versus USPL.
I definitely don't think that the sport needs to be a singular federation
No.
because that's gonna never breed. It's gonna stop the innovation and stop the goal of getting better. But I hate where it's at now, where it's like 30 federations depending on the area. You have PA, USAPL, uh, you have USPA, and then you have all these random NPLs, and everybody's trying to host a national, and Pe and athletes
Multiple
are
world championships.
yeah,
Yeah.
athletes are moving federations just to hit records because they want to say that they're a state record holder, and it's breeding a, um I miss the days when it was just USPA versus USAPL. You had a drug-free dominating organization, and you had a non-tested dominating federation, but I've also been in the sport for about 10 years, so I remember those days. Well, Thomas, I really appreciate your time. I think we had a good talk. I think we're gonna leave the audience with some good knowledge of maybe I know I've learned some things and some ideas moving forward. And I really just want to thank you for your time. I want to wish Yelm and you as a coach continued success. I enjoyed seeing all your lifters at nationals. I know that how hard that is and how challenging multiple. I think I've only ever coached 14 people at a comp, so I
Mhm.
couldn't imagine 60. But once again, I wish your organization and your some students continued success. Thank you for coming on. And I
Yeah.
hope
Thank you.
hope to see you in Texas in like 9 months. So once again, thank you, audience. I hope you had a great episode listening to this. And as always, stay strong. Thank y'all.
Thank you.